Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Mastering Retention podcast. Today, we have Claire Rosane with us, and we're going to be talking about user acquisition, which will be a lot of fun. I think people will just realize how little I actually know about user acquisition by my questions today. But sometimes I find that can be a very fresh perspective as I kind of get curious and dig in and stuff. So this is going to be super fun. Claire, I've been following you and the stuff that you put out for quite a while now. She's got an awesome YouTube channel and she posts really cool things on LinkedIn. So definitely like follow her and look out for her videos. And like, I love your breakdowns of like different ads and this, how they kind of get put together and stuff. It's just awesome. So follow her. But before we dive into everything, Claire, I always like to ask, like, what's your story? Like, how did you get into games?
That's actually a cool story. I began because I crafted my own game. It was really creepy games, like I developed some. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Actually, I did a pro sport. So let's see if I can do some user acquisition in Korea and also some ad monetization, because at the end of the day, let's see if I can get some money as well. And at the end of the day, I just made some money in Korea, which I was super happy about. And I was reinvesting this money on my little application until like it get, I think, now excluded from the store, but still, yeah, I didn't update my SDK, so system also. So my dog is saying, well, I'm just cutting the.
Well, this is fun. We all love dogs on this show, especially puppies. So it's totally fine and totally fun. The other night, my dog decided it was fun to come in and wake me up at like 2 a.m. by barking in my face to take him outside. And I was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" But fun times. Cool. So you started doing your own games, kind of made some money. Kind of where'd you go from there?
Yes, so yeah, I did my own money, and then like I was, oh, that's actually really fun, and I've always been playing a lot games. Like I think it began with, Abo Hotel or those kind of things. So definitely, like I always enjoy the feeling you have when you play, and like all what you can share with others with gaming. Like I think it's a really beautiful story for me, and I think it went even stronger during the pandemic. So the fact I could actually make my work like something I really enjoy, I mean, it's a pleasure. Like on a daily basis, I'm really happy about it, and I love all games. So yeah, that's a bit of my story.
Yeah, I love that. No, that is the best part about getting to work in games. You're like, well, I got to do some research. So I'll just play some games here and stuff. That's great. So I've got two questions, which are very fun questions that I've found. And I think I'm actually going to start using them more on the show, but you're going to be my first guest that I actually use them on. So this will be fun. So the first question is, what are 2 to 3 problems that you've been, encountering and that you're actively trying to solve in the next, let's say, 12 months?
Should I say tracking? I don't know. I think it's I mean it's an issue everyone gets. But if I take more the question on a personal level, I think definitely time management. I've been changing a lot of countries and responsibilities as well, and so on. And I always try to balance my passion I have for video games, my work, and also my personal life. And like when you are doing something you really love, I feel it's even more challenging because you really want to do it like always. But I think time showed me that stepping back and doing something else is something that is really valuable for you, even on a work level. So I try to balance this kind of thing. So time management, I would say. And on a more work level, definitely I think keep being open to test anything, like innovate and always learn from each other. Like it's not it's, I think like a lot of people, they are like, oh, I'm an AP game, or oh, I'm an IAA game or a AAA game. Like no matter, and like you're kind of stuck in your category. So me, what I like a lot is, and I'm learning to do it even better, is keep a wide view and really like try to learn from everyone on gaming, because I think we all have something to bring, basically.
Yeah. So think about that first point that you called out, tracking. Is that a solvable problem? Now, I mean, Google's kind of doing this IDFA kind of thing too. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better, but Apple's obviously implemented it. Is there any way that we can get to the point where we can have that better tracking and that real, ROI?
So I don't think so. I never been someone that has been really, I didn't always really like deterministic tracking. I began my journey in dating, which is like kind of paid user acquisition, is working a lot with offline marketing and so on. So I always I grew up learning that one feeds each other, and that sometimes what you don't track is actually the result of what you can't track. So I think there is no solution. Maybe Web3. I mean, I don't know. We will see how it goes, because Web3, like one of the best thing they are saying, I think, is that it's privacy compliance. So I'm looking forward to see if they can respect the promise. But no, I think tracking is going to be a daily thing that is going to change, and always we are going to have those things, and it's what makes our job exciting, I think. Always I think new way to have a look at the data, and at the end of the day, maybe in 10 years we will all be holistic, and UA will just be for everyone, blended with organic, and we will be challenged on this. I mean, I would love to be honest, even with cross platform. I think it's something we see. You calculate the LTV of your user right now. Is it deterministic when you get a new user, or is it across a portfolio? It's changing so much. So I think tracking is something we will never solve, but we will always challenge.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it'll be particularly interesting to see how, as more games go completely cross-platform too. I know there's been a number of companies that have come up in the last probably 5 or 10 years that are really oriented towards that Fortune 500. So it's the brand tracking of keeping track of one person when they're on the mobile device, and then they're over here and in the store, and all the different types of places. And I think it's a real challenge. I don't think anybody solved it. So as we go more cross-platform with games and tracking those users, obviously if they're signing into an account, gives you a little bit more. But if you're not doing that, there's other challenges that come with it. Cool. Time management. I'm curious, do you find that when you do a good job of maybe separating the work from the life, and you're doing I don't know what sort of hobbies you have, but let's say you go and paint, do you find that when you're painting, you ever have really creative epiphanies that, draw back to work that have been, super enlightening?
Yes. So, I've always been this person at school that always hang out with people that doesn't look at all like my background and so on. And I think it's really you find innovative stuff, it's by going outside of what you know. And actually it makes a good argument on diversity and inclusion. More diverse a company is, I'm a true believer, more innovativities, because more you step back and you have several opinions that are not the one you actually have. I think more you can innovate. And I think it's the same with what I shared on time management. I used to be so passionate on my work that I would be only on my work, and I feel like since I got more a personal life and so on, and I'm, for instance, let's say I'm painting and so on. Right now I'm running with my dog, for instance, which is super funny. And it definitely gives me energy, I think, for work. And even if it doesn't fit directly, I would say, the games, because so far we didn't made a game with a dog and a runner, with a dog, maybe it would be funny. But I feel it really makes me more productive. And I think it's really you can stay on the long run on your work, and really stay in it. I think you need to balance all the energy, physical, mentally, and there is so many different energy that you can have from outside of your work. So I will definitely, you can test and you can learn. Like, you can tell, what about you? How is it for you?
Yeah, no, totally. I find that when I'm doing things outside of work, I usually have most of my like smart ideas aren't when I'm working per se. It's like when I'm on a walk or at the gym or doing something else, listening to music. It's like comes to me. So that's great. Then your kind of final point or the problem that you're kind of looking with is, trying to stay open to innovate and test kind of anything. Has there ever been a time where you saw something and you didn't test that and innovate on it and you maybe should have?
Yes, certainly. I'm thinking about a concrete example only. Let me think. Mm, hmm. Something I should have tested. I think something I was not really sure about is how UX can feed actually user acquisition. And I had some question around it. And more I'm learning like what is UX, more I'm thinking actually it's something that can really be useful on UA and especially on creative. But at the first, I was thinking like if you ask people super long survey like on your creative and so on, like isn't it a bit like breaking the flow, because at the end of the day it's super qualitative, when on UA it's really often quantitative because you have an algorithm that basically is pushing things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this was the last thing where I think I was wrong, and I'm learning how it can be sustainable on the UA strategy as well. Because even if you have a creative, highly user base, so I think it's a good beginning. But on UA on the other side, like you have this problematic where you are targeting wide audience. So how can you make the best business case out of it, and profitability as well? Do you have an idea? I'm really curious to have your thoughts about it.
So you're touching on something that I'm very curious about, and I actually just had a conversation about this earlier. So one of the first companies that I started, it's still around, but I don't really actively run it anymore. It's called Theorem Reach, and we kind of brought rewarded surveys to mobile gaming and stuff. And so we've got a quite large like audience of gamers and people in different apps and things like that. And essentially, it's like you can take a survey and you get 100 coins, more or less. And we were kind of talking the other day about user acquisition creatives, and somebody on the Theorem Reach team was pitched the idea of like, well, what if we just enabled UA teams to be able to very quickly upload a creative, pick the audience that they want to send it to, and then, we can just give them like a standard set of questions where the audience can kind of watch it and then respond to it and give some feedback about that creative. And I actually said, I don't think that they would do that. Like, why wouldn't you just run the ad on Facebook and like get the exact real data on those players back? I mean, yeah, our surveys might be a little bit faster, but don't you want that like the quantitative, like real feedback directly? So I'm curious from your perspective, like, would it make sense to run a survey and ask some users about like this, creative to get that feedback on the qualitative side, or would you just, run it on Facebook and see what happens?
So more, I think I think about it more. I think it makes sense, and especially because I think one of the prediction of 2022 I've read, I don't remember where, is that we are going to go on qualitative audience more. That we are going to lose traffic, and we are going to seek for really premium audience. So I think knowing at the end of the day what people think is really important, and I think I often thought that when you read the comments on the creative, you can have an idea of what people think about your creative. And more I think about it, more I'm thinking it's not the case. Because actually, maybe people, they don't all have around the world like a feedback culture, for instance. So maybe they won't comment on your creative. And maybe as well, like, and maybe as well, you are going to have only bad comments because the feedback culture is that only if it's bad, you are going to comment on it. So it's like this, and you will miss basically like what your consumer, like the one that likes the ad, think about your ad. So I think it's really important for your creative production to get insight directly from your consumer, and not only with KPI like CTR, IPM, and so on, but really get this kind of persona-led things that UX research is mastering. So I think it's really important, and I think for any game, like we see even some hyper casual game that now are wondering like, how can I get psychological insight from my user, because like we know it's emotion, for instance, is something really important in advertising. So no, I think we should actually, as a UA, be turned as well into this kind of thing. And I think that's also a way to innovate, and you know, like not just to put all your creative and say, okay, Facebook, go deal with it, right? I mean,
so kind of getting a little bit more into just or away from strictly does it perform to, you know, trying to better understand the qualitative of like what part of this ad drives the performance or the not performance, and what emotion does this actually elicit. Now, do you think that should be done on people maybe outside your app, or do you think a survey on your existing users showing an ad for the game would make, like, I'm a little bit back and forth between that. Like, yes, I would love to show a ad for my game to my, let's say, whale users, or like the folks that I really want to understand, like, does this drive you to get there? But it also might be kind of a jarring or weird survey to give to those players. I don't know.
Yes, I think it can be useful in re-engagement and on getting new user, and also on getting marketability result. Like I used to work on marketability and all what was pre-production, and what we saw on the KPI, it was like CTR test, active test, and so on, like really retention test, all what is really basic, you know. And what if, like, instead of this, that we call like CTR test, it's a bit like the new focus group. What if instead of this and redirected like only to some survey and so on, we did it as a BAU campaign? Like if we do it in pre-production, why we are not doing it during all the life cycle of the user? Why once we get like a user, we don't ask him like, is he likely happy to be re-engaged? Is he happy to be cross-promote and so on? I think like we should never forget that the user is really at the center of things. And I feel like, you know, like when you are on pre-production, you are highly on it, and then you kind of tend to forget it. So I would love, to be honest, that we keep it in mind.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Final, like, second question that I had there, kind of going back to my original. If I had a magic wand and I could give you anything related to user acquisition, what would you want most?
I would like, but that's a tricky one. What would I like in UA? Maybe I would change UA. I would make it more like brand performance on the KPIs. Like, you know, like we speak a lot about payback and how long we are going to pay back in UA based on deterministic data. So I would make UA more holistic, and I would make all the KPI more flexible to also the environment of the game. Because I think it's really important, like to be flexible on the data as well, and not be too close to it, because sometimes it's only some assumption that you have. And for instance, like if we take like what happened with the COVID, like we also that the early KPI was really great. Like we had a big spike of retention, ROAS, and so on. So everyone was like, oh, let's spend. And at the end of the day, like, I feel like we didn't have a lot of follow-up on day 360, how it was, and so on. So I feel like we should always think, like, even outside of the data, of the situation, what's going on out there, like, and also, like, even on the prediction, like, if you do a year-on-year analysis, what happened last year? Like, is it similar to this year? Is it the same context? Like, it is the same geopolitical environment and so on? And I think this is sometimes a bit missing.
Fascinating. I like that. Okay. Onto my regular user acquisition question. So this will be fun. So let's say I've made, or you and me decide to start a new studio, and and we've made our first game. Let's say we decide, I want to innovate on the Woodoku style block puzzle kind of game. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it's, grid based kind of game. And we decide, you know what? I think that there's a large number of users out there that don't like all the ads between every level, and they get frustrated and they churn. Maybe this is a very bad idea, but let's pretend. And so instead of that, we're going to add little boosters that you can purchase for IAP, and we're going to try to subsidize that ad revenue for IAP revenue, and get some high scores, maybe a little live ops or something flavored in there too. So we've made our game. How would we go about starting to test this? Is it ready for soft launch, or coming up with user acquisition to see, like, can we actually scale this up? What is our CPI and what's our LTV and stuff going to be?
So first, we are going IAP, so that's a totally different strategy than IAA. So I would expect, like, you have way more live ops on your games and so on, because when you switch of strategy, you need as well to have a product that is following this. And at the end of the day, you can make you have already, like, on any hyper casual games nowadays, things that you can purchase. But if you don't have in your game, like, the added value really to make it to make people purchase and want to play more and so on, like, at the end of the day, I think you need as well the game economy, of VIP games. But I mean, I trust you, I'm sure you did it well, so I will go with this. And when the promise is there, I will definitely like, test on everything that you want to do, even prior it's published. Like, I think now we have this ability in advertising to work directly with Unity developer to even do creative and iterate on the content and so on. And I think nowadays, like, the content is so important, like, outside of the game, but also in the game. So maybe I would say, hey, you know what? Before we switch totally of strategy, what if we run some tests on the new booster, like, what is working, what people like, what they don't like, and so on. So we can do some tests, some survey, and so on. And based on the result, then we can implement it on the game, which is amazing, because I mean, product will want to work with US, so it's like a dream scenario for me. So we tested it, you've put it in the game, and you have some amazing live ops events. So I would say now, like, the best USP of the game is the game itself, because you work so much on the level design to make it appealing, to make it with a proper USP, and to make it a proper IAP game. So I would say, oh, you have a live ops event, so let's advertise on this. Let's have the momentum. Let's use it in the creative. Let's use it in the stock page. Let's make some noises around this, because I'm sure for Valentine's Day, you've put the best Valentine's Day event on the game. So I will try to advertise on it. And then, like, let's see the cohort evolution at the end of the day. Like, I mean, it's always like this, like, you adapt to your game once you see how it goes, and let's see if it paybacks, because you made the best game, right? So if it does, then let's invest even more. Let's have a look at different channels, different opportunities, and definitely, like, I think different channels is important, and it means as well different creative and different audiences, and so on and so on.
So, do you think, and you talked about some of those like live ops events and things like that, and I don't think I've ever seen a game team do that. Um, but I've actually been talking to some folks lately, starting to kind of explore some stuff. So user-wise, my company, we kind of make a live ops platform. And it's really simple and easy to use, kind of made for the non-technical people. But then we have this whole portion to make it really easy for the technical people to kind of integrate it in. But once it's integrated in, you can like change things really easily and stuff. Um, it seems like in the more traditional apps, like let's say Tinder, um, their marketing teams really don't spend that much time on like the paid user acquisition. Their marketing teams spend more time in the apps, more or less trying to like sell the subscription 1,000 different ways to the people to try to get them to convert, right? Um, do you think we ever should get to the point where like user acquisition should become a little bit more blended, or instead of you owning maybe like the ASO and like the creative style, it should go even deeper? So, as an example, let's say we've got a Disney game. You create a Princess Jasmine ad that maybe goes down. Maybe we're doing one of the app store changes. So we've got some Princess Jasmine, ASO oriented stuff there. Then you get in, and now you've gone into a platform like UserWise or something internal or whatever, and you say, okay, I'm going to create a segment of players that saw the Princess Jasmine ad. Once they complete the Fatui, I'm going to drop them into this new event that I set up where Princess Jasmine is the thing that we're working towards, and I'm going to throw in some like princess dresses and some other things that they can kind of work towards as they're doing that. And maybe we go a little bit further down the line. So UA basically has the ability to control the player experience from the first time they saw the ad, maybe up to like day 10, at which point all the players kind of converge together or whatnot. Does something like that make sense?
Yeah, I love it. And actually, I wish I've seen it more on the market. Like when you take someone like Netflix, they are doing those product dynamic optimization based on a user profile. And I would love to see it more on games, and it will make so much sense, to be honest, like to have a user experience that is that is just user centric from the beginning to the end. And I think it's something that gets such a big added value. We all want something that is personalized across the market right now. Like games, they get more social, but they get also with higher expectation, because also like there is a really high competition. So I think definitely like to fit your user should be your first goal. And I mean, I also worked on CRM, and it's a bit the same of using macro on your push notification. So basically, you get something that at least like the user feel like is considered in your app, and this makes the difference on the CTR rate, and this makes a difference then on your retention. And I think it's really important. And I mean, tell me if you know a game that is doing this right now. I want to see it definitely, because it's definitely something we should do. I think like from UA to the in-app product experience, to the re-engagement, to the cross promo, and so on, to get even scoring, market automation and so on. I think it's really important. So please tell me. I'm listening to you now.
Well, I won't say that I know if anyone's actively doing it live right now, but I know there's some folks that are toying around with some stuff on our platform. So we'll see where it goes. But to me, I find it fascinating. Like user acquisition controls the spend, but then it's like as soon as the user's like downloaded, you like hand it off to this other team versus like letting the UA team go all the way in. And maybe after grabbing Princess Jasmine, maybe you guys also set up the princess pack, starter offer or something for $9.99. You can get all the other princesses, and maybe if you watch the Simba ad, you have a very different Lion King oriented, experience as you're getting into I don't know. So I'm fascinated by it. We'll see how things go.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think actually right now what is made is only around influencer marketing, or if you come from TV and things like this. So yeah, I mean, UA should be in the mix, actually, definitely.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I have some general just like ad kind of questions for you. So let's go back to our Woodoku IAP purchase clone or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out, what sort of ads I should make. Like, does it make sense for me to look at Woodoku ads or Wordscape ads or uh, Block Puzzler or anyone else kind of in that rough genre? I feel like a lot of those ads are IQ based, and you see the person like make the stupid mistake, and it's like, oh, your IQ is whatever, or it's like an age based thing, like are you young enough still in your mind to get there? um you know I see a lot of ads, and even within like ad intelligence solutions on like maybe what I see on like App Annie or Sensor Tower or whatever, it'll show me the competitor ads, and I can maybe go to Facebook and see the ads that they're running. But how do I know which of them are actually good and working? And is it possible for me to know like a rough CPI? Like, yeah, I'm curious what your take is on competitor ads and understanding the details of those.
Yeah, on competitor ads, you can definitely check the amount of time it has been live for, but I would say like benchmark is a tricky thing because you need always to do it to be up to date. But should you always be a follower, or should you like innovate in your game? Like I'm a true believer that each game gets its own user experience, and that the product is the best USP of a game. And when you advertise for a game, people, they expect as well, like to see what's in your game basically. So I'm a big fan of gameplay creative, and also iteration on the content in the gameplay creative, and sharing the learning with the product team to see if mini games or something can be done. But I think it's always important, of course, to benchmark, to keep also seeing what others are doing. But I would say not only from your game category, but also from other category, or even verticals. Like too many people, for instance, if you are doing, I don't know, like an idle game, you are going to review only the idle games and do always the same creative. And to be honest, I'm not sure it makes sense. And I'm thinking about this user scrolling on Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, and seeing always the same ad. I mean, at the first time, like it's okay, like you convert and so on, but at some point, like maybe Facebook is going to share more of the same creative because okay, they read the creative, they saw it's similar to another advertiser that does the same, so let's push it because it worked with the other one. But at the end of the day, will the user convert again if he already converts with another one, or just be bored, or like.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you have any insights or learnings of things that you've done or haven't done that have worked out well or not well?
I think definitely. So on the creative, I think it was when I worked in dating. We used to do only those UGC ads and so on, that always, like are really personal. I mean, they are oriented on UGC content. And it was such an obvious thing, that everyone is doing this, like Lovu is doing things, this, like anyone on the market is doing things, this and so on, that no one actually like spoke about the dating app. And I remember one time, like we actually went a bit outside of this, and we used some content that was more graphic, and it actually performed better than what we used to have. So I think definitely, like until you don't test, you don't learn. So you should definitely, I think, try several things, and just learn from it, and also ask your user what they think about it. Like like it's like those COVID ad, like a lot of people, they easily used it when the pandemic came, and a lot of people actually disliked those ad, and it was something that they saw, like you are using something where we are losing people from our family and so on, and to advertise on it, like it's a bit not appropriate. And yeah, actually, like you listen to your user, and then you learn, and then you test again. Like,
Yeah, that's great. Do you have a North Star metric Like I know some user acquisition teams have lately shifted of like, all we care about is IPM, or installs per million for folks that don't know that, or all we care about is CPI. And then some even get into like more game metrics like LTV, which is a little bit more nebulous now, but or retention, so you don't have the full tracking. But do you have a North Star metric?
I like I mean, it's really personal. I think each and everyone gets several different things, but I like the cost per retention. Like too often, I think we saw the cost per install when actually I think the cost per retention is something that makes more sense, because even when you take the retention percentage, I feel like, like depending on the amount of user that you have, sometimes it's just I mean, it can change so much. Like if you have 2 users, okay, the 2 they stay super. Like I mean, it's not something scalable, right? And you still have like a great percentage. So the cost per retention for me is something I really like.
That's a good one. Yeah, I know one thing that I kind of naively believed when I was like getting into gaming is that, I'd heard about okay, you got to make sure that the CPI is less than the LTV and then you can kind of scale it up. But what I didn't learn or know right away, which just makes sense, is that like different ads and different days and different countries, you're going to have all these different like CPIs, and all those different groups and people might have like different LTVs and stuff. Like you might actually have an ad that has a 25-cent CPI that ends up with a 15-cent LTV. And then you've got this, ad that's got a dollar CPI and it's got like a $5 LTV or whatnot. And there's like all these different things that you have to kind of like track and measure between the two, which just kind of blew me away. But I think thinking about cost for the retention, because you can't grow your revenue per user if the users aren't around anymore, right? And how do you keep them retained? So that's great.
Yeah, and actually, I remember like I used to work in social casino, and like I mean, you can pay crazy high to have a VIP that at the end of the day is going to stay and monthly spend 10K because it's like a gold VIP, right? So I think definitely like you should when you do user acquisition, I think CPI should not be your first your first KPI, and of course it's important because you also have this K factor and so on, but that impacts your organic. But at the end of the day, you need to think as well of the cohort evolution. So I think it's important.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on ASO and how it kind of relates to user acquisition?
We love ASO. I'm a big fan of ASO. I think my skills on ASO are getting weaker because it changes every day. But I think ASO is without a good ASO, you don't have a good CPI and you don't have a good cost per retention and so on. So ASO is something you need to keep in mind. It's one step before you install, and so many people they are forgetting this, and they are not enough watching it. I think you should take ASO as a part of your UA. And I remember when I was working at Product Madness, ASO was even in the UA team. So amazing. It was Laura that was managing it. She is one of the best on this field. And for us, like it was an obvious thing that ASO should be made as well by UA. And even I remember when I was working in dating, I also did some ASO. So I think it's something like each UA manager, they should have a training on ASO and yeah, like get some interest around it. I think it's so important. And like we are even speaking about Webflow now, like adding one page even prior you go on the ASO page. So I mean, I think it makes the whole thing even more challenging, and even more if you add on Google Store that now you can play, you can have those little interactive experience even prior you install your game. So yeah, and even if you add on top of this the playable ads on UA, so no, I think ASO is a part of the mix.
Love it. So there's some ads that I see where it's like no matter what you do, or if you're like trying to hit the X or whatever, it's like it'll always pop up the App Store. Um, do you have any experience with those? Like, does that actually work other than just like pissing off the people that are trying to close out of the ad?
Definitely, I think some network. I'm not going to name them, but especially on rewarded videos, they are using this like where first you have to watch the video because it's a rewarded video, and you watch actually the video only because you want a reward because you want to finish your level, and on
Yep.
top of that, like they just redirect you to the store. I'm sorry, but on my side, I just want to leave a 1-star review when I'm doing this. So I think you should definitely pay attention to those network and uh, and give feedback as well to those network because I think it's super bad for your user experience and I think also it can affect your score your rating on the store and so it can actually impact your ranking I think on the long term. So I think always be mindful with the spam ad because I think it's not even for your brand, right? It's not something like your brand is not going to be associated with something positive because you are just showing an ad saying, hello, it's me, I'm this game, and so on. And then you have like the worst experience that you can have. And even if you install the game at the end of the day, you're just going to be, okay, I just began with something bad and I just can't. I sure.
Yeah. You actually bring up something very interesting. Like when I think about, so I usually come from the monetization side. So when I think about where do I put those like rewarded video placements, midway through an event or whatnot is really great from a monetization perspective because a user I feel like is almost discouraged from downloading the game because I just want to get back and like finish the thing that I'm doing. It's almost like an interruption. Um, Thinking about that from the UA side, like, does that negatively affect performance and something you want to try to avoid showing your ads in those types of placements?
Yeah, I mean, you can't avoid those placement, but definitely you see it like when you have these rewarded that are put like next to the nearly missed level, like you see that at the end of the day, I mean, you don't have your install. So I would love the ad network actually to let me the opportunity to decide at which level I can target on rewarded video. Because if I target your user that is level 100, that is a super active user that never played in your game and always leveled up with a rewarded video, I don't see, I mean, I get really low chances to basically get my installs like if your user is so much into your game and just want to level up at the end of the day. So definitely that's, I think product is making it super hard on us. Better is the product team, more hard it is for the UA team and the rewarded video side, I think.
That's fascinating. I want to start an ad network now. No, not really. Okay, I've got a number of different kind of quick fire questions I'm going to run through with you because we're almost out of time here. What's your take and your experience with the length of the creative? Sometimes you've got like a 6-second video or 5-second and like an interstitial versus like the 30-second or 45-second. Like, do you find different things have different places? Some work better than others, or?
Yeah, so definitely like on rewarded video, you don't really have the choice, it's 30 seconds. On Facebook for long, it was like the shorter, the better. And now the thing is that you have video that are going also like at the beginning of playable ads. So I think it's definitely something to challenge based on your placement. And on TikTok, I'm seeing a lot of long videos as well. I mean, you can make it quite long and like also on all the branding video right now it's getting super long, especially on YouTube, and it's performing as well. So definitely on your length, I think iterate on it and see what performs the best on the specific channel because it's changing a lot, I think, platform per platform.
That's amazing. So I feel like there's different types of moments to show in your ad. Like sometimes you might show like you're watching somebody and then they fail and you're like, oh, you're an idiot, I can do better than that. Or sometimes like you see them succeed and it looks really fun, or different other things. Do you find that there's any lessons learned or recommendations that you have around the types of moments that you have, or do you just test everything? Like what's your take on those?
So I think your first 3 seconds are really important, and following your completion rate as well. Like on this specific channel, at the end of the day, when is coming the key messaging, and when people are actually not watching your video, if you have your key messaging at the end and no one is watching 100%, it's going to be tricky. So usually when you have a creative, it's important to like get something really appealing, a strong mechanic, something that is like your booster, the amazing booster we spoke about for your puzzle. Basically, I would make it appear at the beginning, and yeah, I think you need to be good at the beginning in order to keep your user until the end of your video. So I will bet on the beginning of my video, to be honest.
That's great. So here's an interesting one. Do you know, or does it change or vary, but like how many ad views does it take to get a player to actually download the game?
So it depends on the channel and on your game as well. So but actually it takes a lot, and that's why we we are charged at CPM at the end of the day. It's because we see so many people are seeing actually our ads, and that's why it's important to have good creative, because so many people are seeing it, and it's also to some extent something that is brand related. So UA is also showing to so many people some content, so it needs also to be careful about the creative. And I remember I used to do some creative. It was really funny. Like for instance, once again in dating, we used to get a creative, and basically it was something that we figured out it was actually someone that we met in one of our events, because dating used to use a real profile picture to advertise. So thanks to GDPR, now it's not allowed, thank you. But at the time it was. So imagine you one day by another, you see your head on creative, like it's terrible. Like your Tinder is spending like I'm saying Tinder, but any dating app is spending million on your head. Like it's crazy, and like you are the new head of the brand. So definitely I would say be careful with what you put on your creative, because definitely a lot of people are seeing it and you have a lot of adviews.
Oh my goodness. Of the ads that you see, do you find, is it a combination of like Royal Match? They've got so many different ads running all the time. Like, do you find that it's effective to like hit people with like different versions of different ads, and then it's finally like, oh, I've been seeing this everywhere, I should get it? Or like, is it the same ad over and over that gets there, or a little bit of a combination of the two?
Yeah, Royal Match is a really funny and interesting one, because they are doing really what we spoke about, like about this the game is the best USP, so they are doing a lot of gameplay video. But at the same time, at the beginning of the month, I saw creatives, they are just that looks a lot like a Metacore ad. So I think that creative strategy is really interesting. And I'm interested to see how it evolves, because like they use the 3D character with the same wording as the ad that you had on Metacore and so on. So no, I think it's fun. So I'm looking forward to see how it goes. But I think Royal Match is an interesting one to follow. But once again, I'm not super fan of following the other. I prefer like to have a look of my game and advertise on my own USP, because I think at Rovio, at least we have really amazing games, and we have a strong USP as well. So I prefer to focus on my games rather than the others.
I love that. Cool. Final question here. What's your take on kind of user acquisition for other genres? So like, let's say you're working on I don't know, Angry Birds 2 or something. Or, well, let's not use a Rovio example, but let's pretend you're working on Clash of Clans, and are there lessons and things that you can learn from a puzzle genre like Royal Match that you can take back and apply to your user acquisition, or should you shy away from that because it's two very different audiences and they're going to respond to different things?
No, I think definitely like one genre ad should fit the other, and especially on the VFX effects. Like all the games, they are also like answering several trigger. Like you have such a science that is behind the games, right? You are not just doing content; you also have all a thinking behind it. And I think you should use it in any game category. And anyway, it doesn't make sense, I think, nowadays to speak about game category, because when you have a look at casual games, now it's all mixed match. When you look at hyper casual, it's all mixed match as well. And you have idle battle royale games. You have some. It's all changed, and it's all changing so much and so fast that if you focus only on your slingshot game, for instance, like you are going to miss out something. And like for instance, if you take the example of Playrix, like they are using a lot of other games genre user experience in their game, but they put in the mini games. And I think this is really smart, and this is really like pushing even more like the stickiness that you can have on a game. And I think it's really well done. So no, I would say like always be open and play whatever you can, if you like to play, of course.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Since we are on the Mastering Retention podcast, I always like to ask, what's one tip or trick or lesson you've kind of learned over the years to increase retention? Like, how do you keep players playing for longer?
So it might be hard to say because of iOS 14, but I would say you re-engage them. And I think, I was reading a study that was saying that it's actually cheaper to re-engage a user rather than getting a new user sometimes, and sometimes even more profitable. So I think I still believe that re-engagement is something to follow, and not because and from any page UA, but also push notification, email as well, and all what is CRM oriented.
That's great. Cool. Well, Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. If people do have any questions or want to get in contact with you, is there a good way for them to do that?
Yes, so you can reach me on LinkedIn. So it's Claire Rosin, and it's really I accept everyone, and always happy to speak.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.